The storm came without warning, the way the worst ones always did in the mountains. Elena Voss had lived at the edge of the wilderness long enough to know the signs, the way the sky turned a strange shade of gray, the way the birds went silent before the wind picked up. But even she was not ready for the storm that buried the mountain pass in 3 feet of snow that night. She was a wildlife veterinarian, the only one for nearly 100 miles, used to answering calls about injured elk or stranded cattle. She had built her life around solitude, choosing the quiet of the mountains over the noise of the city she had left behind years ago. Her cabin sat alone at the edge of a pine forest, with nothing but wilderness in every direction. She liked it that way. It was simple, predictable, safe. Nothing about what she found that morning was predictable. She had gone out at first light to check the fence line near the ravine behind her property, worried the storm might have damaged it. Instead, she found something that made her stop breathing for a moment. 15 wolves, curled together in a tangled heap, half buried in drifting snow. Their fur was matted with ice, their bodies pressed close together for warmth that had clearly run out hours ago. She expected to find them gone. Wolves were strong, but no animal could survive a night like that without shelter. She knelt beside the nearest one, her hands trembling, and pressed 2 fingers against its neck. A pulse. Faint, but there. She checked the next one, and the next, moving as quickly as her cold fingers would allow. One by one, she found the same thing. Weak heartbeats. Shallow breathing, but alive. All 15 of them were still alive. Elena did not think. She acted. She ran back to the barn, dragged out the old wooden sled she used for hauling firewood, and began the long, painful work of moving each wolf, one at a time, back to shelter. It took her nearly 6 hours. Her arms burned, her legs ached, and more than once she nearly gave up, certain she would collapse before she finished. But every time she looked down at the animals she was carrying, she found the strength to keep going. By the time she had moved the last one into the barn, the sun was already beginning to set again. She built a fire in the old wood stove, laid down every blanket and towel she owned, and worked through the night, thawing frostbitten paws and forcing warm broth down throats, too weak to swallow on their own. She did not sleep. She could not. Every hour felt critical. Every small movement from one of the wolves, a small victory she refused to lose. By dawn, 14 of them were stirring, their eyes opened slowly, blinking in confusion at the warmth surrounding them, at the strange human figure moving quietly between them. They were frightened, but too exhausted to do anything but watch her with wary, tired eyes. The 15th wolf did not wake. He was the largest of the group, with a scarred muzzle and a torn ear, clearly the oldest and strongest among them. Elena knelt beside him for hours, checking his pulse again and again, refusing to believe he was gone. She pressed a cloth soaked in warm water against a deep gash on his shoulder, cleaning the wound as gently as she could, speaking softly to him, the way she always did with frightened animals, even though she knew he could not understand her words. It was nearly noon when his eyes finally opened. Elena felt a wave of relief so strong it nearly brought her to tears. She reached out slowly, the way she always did, careful not to startle him. What happened next would change the entire course of her life. The wolf's body began to shudder, but not from the cold. Something deeper was happening, something Elena had no explanation for. She watched in stunned silence as his bones seemed to shift beneath his skin, cracking and resettling into new shapes. His fur receded, disappearing into pale skin marked with old scars. Within moments, where a wolf had lain only seconds before, there was now a man. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair damp with melted snow. His eyes, the same striking amber color as the wolf's had been, opened slowly, and he looked directly at her. Elena stumbled backward, knocking over her medical kit, unable to speak. Her mind raced through every explanation science could offer, and found none of them adequate. The man pushed himself up slowly, wincing at the pain in his shoulder, and looked around the barn at the 14 wolves still recovering nearby. Something in his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, and then to something that looked almost like gratitude. "You saved my pack," he said, his voice low and rough, as though he had not used it in a long time. "All of them." Elena opened her mouth, closed it again, and tried once more. "I don't understand what I'm looking at," she finally managed. The man studied her for a long moment before speaking again. "My name is Kale," he said, "though that is not the whole truth of who I am," he explained slowly, watching her carefully, as though gauging how much she could accept at once. He told her he was the leader of an ancient lineage of people who could take the form of wolves, a bloodline that had lived hidden in the northern wilderness for generations, avoiding the notice of the outside world. His people called him their Alpha King, though the title meant little to him in that moment beyond the responsibility it carried. 3 days earlier, his pack had been ambushed by rivals who wanted their territory and their bloodline erased entirely. They had fled into the mountains, running for days without rest, until the storm caught them in the open. They had huddled together in the ravine, trying to survive the cold, certain that none of them would see morning. "If you hadn't found us," Kale said quietly, "we would not be here." Elena sat down slowly on an overturned bucket, trying to process everything she had just heard. Her scientific mind searched for logic, for some rational explanation, but found none. All she had were her own eyes, and what she had seen with them. "Why didn't the others change back?" she finally asked, glancing toward the 14 wolves still resting nearby. Kale's expression softened as he looked at them. "They are too young," he said. "Only a full alpha can hold his human form so soon after something like this. The rest will need time, days, perhaps weeks, before they can shift safely." Elena nodded slowly, though nothing about the situation felt like something she could simply nod along to. Still, the wolves needed her help, whatever they truly were, and that was something she understood completely. Over the following days, Elena continued caring for the pack as they slowly healed. She changed bandages, prepared food, and kept the barn warm through the cold mountain nights. Kale stayed close by her side through all of it, helping where he could, though Elena noticed he was careful never to overstep, never to make her feel as though her home had been taken from her. In the quiet hours between tasks, he told her more about his world. He spoke of the hidden kingdom his people had built deep in the wilderness, tucked away from human eyes for centuries. He spoke of the old magic that ran through their bloodline, passed down since a time before written history, and of the enemies who had hunted his family for generations, wanting the power that came with their lineage for themselves. Elena listened to all of it and found herself believing every word, not because it made sense, but because she had seen the truth of it with her own eyes. She, in turn, told him about her own life, about the career she had built alone in the mountains, treating injured wildlife because it gave her a sense of purpose that nothing else ever had, about the quiet, careful life she had constructed for herself, one where she rarely let anyone close enough to matter. Kale listened without judgment, the way she had learned few people ever did. One evening, as she was changing the bandage on his shoulder, he caught her hand gently. "You did not have to save us," he said. "Most people would have looked away." "I couldn't look away," Elena said simply. "I never can." He held her gaze a moment longer than necessary before letting go, and Elena felt something shift inside her chest, something she had not felt in a very long time. Days passed, and slowly, the pack began to heal. One by one, the younger wolves regained their strength, standing on steady legs, their eyes clearer, their movements more confident. Elena watched them with quiet pride, the same way she watched every creature she had ever nursed back to health. But this time was different. This time, she had grown attached not just to the animals, but to the man who led them. On the final evening before the pack was strong enough to leave, Kale found Elena outside the barn, watching the sunset paint the snow-covered mountains in shades of orange and pink. "We will be leaving soon," he said. "My people need to return home, to reclaim what was taken from us." Elena nodded, though the thought of them leaving left a strange ache in her chest that she had not expected. "I understand," she said. "You have a kingdom to protect." Kale was quiet for a moment before speaking again. "I do," he said, "but I find that I do not want to leave without you." Elena turned to look at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "You saved 15 lives that should have been lost to that storm," he continued. "You gave us more than shelter. You gave us a chance we did not think we would have. I do not say this because I owe you a debt. I say this because I do not want this to be the end of what has grown between us." Elena looked past him toward the barn, where the 15 wolves stood watching the two of them with the same amber-flecked eyes as their king, waiting patiently, as though they too understood what was being asked. She thought about the life she had built alone in these mountains, the quiet solitude she had once believed was enough. She thought about the years she had spent healing broken creatures and calling it purpose, never once considering that she might be missing something greater. She thought about Kale's voice thanking her, and meaning it. "Someone needs to make sure all of you stay out of trouble," she finally said, a small smile breaking through despite herself. Kale's expression shifted into something Elena had not seen from him before, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached all the way to his amber eyes. "Then it is settled," he said. The next morning, Elena packed only what she truly needed, leaving the rest of her old life behind without regret. She walked beside Kale as the pack moved through the snow-covered pines, the 15 wolves trotting alongside them, stronger now, their fur thick and healthy, their eyes bright with life. As they crested a ridge overlooking a hidden valley she had never known existed, Elena caught her first glimpse of the world Kale had described. Stone structures nestled among ancient trees, smoke rising gently from hidden chimneys, figures moving between the buildings who paused to watch their Alpha King return, alive and well, with 15 members of his pack safely beside him. A cheer rose up among them, one that echoed across the valley and settled somewhere deep in Elena's chest. She had come to these mountains searching for solitude, believing it was all she needed. Instead, she had found something far greater, a purpose that reached beyond the wildlife she had spent years caring for, and a connection she had never expected to find. As Kale took her hand and led her down into the valley, toward the home that would now be hers as well, Elena Voss felt certain, for the first time in longer than she could remember, that she was exactly where she was meant to be.